Alright, hello. So I am making this video because it is basically just going to be a video on how to do max possible damage as a mage. For this,
Select
I will be
your
using
god.
Kuku because he is an extremely easy and straightforward god. This is for a true one-tap build. That means you use one ability and you can kill them. This is not a one-tap build where it takes like half a second to kill. No, a single instance of damage will kill. So for this purpose, these are the 4 gods I would recommend doing this with. You could use Vulcan, but it's a higher skill ceiling with his ult, and it's harder to hit than the other guys. Eset you have to build hers up by brawling her first, but these give 30% damage negation, so depending on your skill level, you might want to do Eset. She also has her crowd controls. Janus, I'm sure everybody has fought against a Janus, but his ult is... it scales better than further distance, so again, a bit of a higher skill ceiling for timing and then Scylla has enhanced scaling, but you have to constantly hit it, and it can be hard to hit without help with locking in these down. So for that purpose, we are going to be using kuku because he is the most brain-dead, easy thing to do this with. It is literally just shoot and forget kind of thing. And before you say anything, no, Kuku ult is
They
really
make
not
sacrifices in my
I will
name.
explain that
I
in a
am
moment for those who
Kuku
are
Khan.
Alright, so we're gonna hit level 20, we're going to power level abilities, boom. Alright, so this build does require a bit of skill. You have to be careful and you have to be patient. This is not technically the full build, but it's... actually no, this is the full build. So, now for the starter, we'll be going for this. I personally prefer Galefire, whatever that thing's called, and beads. And then I'm gonna buy one of these, but I'm not gonna use it yet. So, for those of you who are curious or want the screenshots, here's the build. Take your screenshots or whatever. For build order, I would recommend Doom Orb for actually. Let me build this in the correct build order. My bad. Alright, build order is this thing, then this, then this, then this, then this. There's the build order. For those of you who want screenshots, there you go. And then we're going to reset cooldowns, add item stacks. Alright. So, why this build is slightly difficult to use and is not new player friendly. One, we have no CDR in this entire build, as you can see. Not a single % of cooldown reduction, so if you miss your abilities, you're sitting under tower or running away from the fight, because... not friendly if you miss stuff. So you need to be just hit your abilities, which is not hard, but depending on the certain situations, or if you're doing a 1v1, it can be difficult. That's why this is why I'm recommending, if you're trying to learn this build or you haven't played true one-tap builds before because you haven't played Smite 1, I highly recommend practicing this kind of build on Kuku. He is the most brain-dead, easy to use one. Scylla would probably be my second choice because her dash ability gives you an empowered basic attack, and if you land it, it will subtract a flat amount of seconds from your abilities. Very similar to this thing's passive, except you don't need to get a kill, you just have to land a basic attack on an enemy god, I'm pretty sure. I don't think it procs up minions or other AIs. But basically, for the combo, as per what the video title will probably be, if you spawn in a godbot, so we're going to say this is level 20 or whatever, but we have 54 protections as a mage, so we're going to spawn this in with 60 protections, because we can only do 50 or 60, and I want to make sure that nobody calls cap that the 4 protections would save your life or whatever. So apply settings, spawn. Alright, so for this build, it is very straightforward and simple. You're going to make sure you have all of your stacks, you want Doom Orb stacked, and you want to have Soul Gem. The most important things that you need are the Necronomicon stacks, Soul Gem stacks, and your starter is ready. The Doom Orb doesn't matter as much because it's either you one-tap them or you overkill them. It's not gonna do anything else, but without further ado, you pop Dreamer's Idol for that 25% intelligence boost. We have 1350. 2567 damage, and keep in mind this is against somebody who has more protections than a mage would normally have. So if this is a hunter, assassin, or mage that is not building any jank, like, you know, this cursed item right now, you should one-tap them, like completely and utterly, because that is way more damage than this amount of HP here. Um, Now, if we have full stacks, so reset cooldowns, add item stacks, and we did hit for 2603. This simply means if the mage is somebody jank who doesn't like being one-tapped and just killed and they build something like Wish Guardian something, this number is almost higher than this. So they'll have literally 35 HP left. So if they receive damage from literally anything, they just die. So hopefully your teammates can land at least 25 damage. That's like 2 ticks of Kepri's Sun damage over time, keep in mind. And that's assuming the enemy mage or DPS builds 425 max HP. That's atrocious. Just saying. The only other items that'll like actually keep them alive if they only build one off-spec item is something like Shift or Shield, and that's assuming that they're below 75% HP. Because if they're below it, they gain 20 more protections, so they'll gain 45. But because they'd be missing 25% of their HP for that to activate, they'd still probably die. They'd have to pretty much be at 100% HP, and the defenses and max HP this item gives would probably just barely keep them from dying. The other one that you might see more often though now is Ethereal Staff. If they have all stacks on this and at max HP and then you hit them, they may survive depending on whose max HP they stole. Like if they stole it from a tank versus, you know, a mage or something. Otherwise, Alchemist Coat is another good one that you might see damage dealers building occasionally because of the 15% damage mitigation from abilities, because that's what dampening does, as you can see here. Yep. And then I was reading this, by the way, up top, so if you highlight them, it'll say it caps at 35, yada yada yada. Now, for those of you wondering, hey, why don't you just build Echo for funny, goofy build, right? Because Echo does 30% extra damage or 15% for ults. Well, that's because Echo does dealing 30% of its damage again. This again is very important because it is a separate damage number compared to your initial, which means, after testing, the Echo bonus damage actually gets affected by their defense a second time. So your initial attack that the Echo scales off of gets reduced by their defense, and then the actual Echo amount of damage also gets reduced by their defense. So they're getting double use out of their defense with Echo, which is why I absolutely hate it. If Echo did true damage based off of the 30%, that would be great. And those of you who are curious, after I did some more testing, this 20% is 20% of 30 and 15. That means it is respectively 6% damage buff and 3% damage buff. So if you build this item and you have Echo is more than cooldown rate, so you have the 20% increase, that is literally 36% damage or 18% damage for ults. And for a one-tap build where we're relying on our ult, that 18% damage just ain't really gonna cut it. Now, if you wanted to swap out Doom Orb for this thing, you probably could. And you'd probably still one-tap people. Reset, add 2428. Yeah, you'd still one tap, and you'd have some echo here and there that would occasionally proc, but this is not a super high penetration build, so echo is not that useful, just realistically speaking. Which is why I prefer Doom Orb, especially because Doom Orb is a much better first item for that mana regen and the flat pen. Granted, this item gives the flat pen too, but Doom Orb has higher intelligence, max mana regen, and pen, and its passive gives you more intelligence. And it stacks 5 times, that's 40. So Doom Orb gives 110 intelligence if you have max stacks, 200 mana, which is scaling with Book of Thoth, and then it's also giving you that 2 mana regen because the starter we're using is Conduit Gem. We only have 1 mana regen by default. So this 2 brings us up to 3, which basically makes it so you don't have to worry about mana management as much, as long as you don't miss any abilities and you focus on clearing minion waves above getting kills. You shouldn't really worry about trying to get kills until Doom Orb and Book of Thoth are both built, because you'll have enough mana regen to actually play the game and be aggressive. Now, why do I say build Doom Orb first instead of Book of Thoth? That is because Book of Thoth does not give you the 5 penetration now, it's no longer 10, they nerfed it down to 5, until after you're fully evolved it at 50 stacks. Now, if this was a fizz damage item, it would not matter as much. However, for your protections scaling, as you can see, at level 1 we have much less physical protection than we do magical protection. And as we level up, we get magic fizz eventually overcomes magical. But early game, you have more magical than physical, which is why we'd like the 10 flat first before we get the scaling, because you're probably going to go 6 or 7 before you back and get your first item. We'll be generous and call level 6. That means they still have 34 protections. I would much rather knock out 10 of that rather than 5. And again, this build's purpose is not to do true damage. This build does way more damage than a true damage build. Because the true damage build has like 700 intelligence, whereas this one has 1081. And if I add stacks, wow, that's lame. Alright, one sec. With stacks, assuming it will have less, or way more. Because Doom Orb adds 40. No, I can just do that. But there we go. So we're at 1131 intelligence with full stacks on all items. And then if we pop this, we're at 33 or 1339 max intelligence. And then if we pop potion, we have even more. So we have 2331, we set weapons, 1459 intelligence. That is why our ult does 2478 damage base before mitigations. Now, like I said, this whole build is for one thing. It may or may not be super effective against tanks, although for those of you who were curious, we could simply add, call it 300 protections on a Ymir, apply it to boss. As you can see, you can still do pretty decent damage.
Serpent swiftness. Down.
Basics also chunk, which is great. And we didn't even use that, so we're gonna reset, add item stacks to be safe. So even with a 300 protection Ymir, granted that guy had no items, so no items that increase max HP or anything, but assuming that they don't build a bunch of max HP, you can still just absolutely kill and shoot. Great! But anyways, that's the build showcase. This is the highest damage build I have been able to find. Remember, if this is your first time building a build like this, please use Kuku, and not like Janice and think you're going to outplay people with portals while one-tapping them. The skill ceiling for that kind of abrupt change is not good. The other thing is, please keep in mind, if you don't have Necronomicon stacks, your intelligence plummets. We currently have 1211 with the 3k pod. If you sell it and buy it back, it didn't change. Okay. Hold up. Hold the one. I'm so confused. There. Um,
Perfection.
okay. I don't think this is adding. Gotta love how buggy Smite is. Anyways, this stacks up to 6 times with 30 intelligence. 6 times 3 is 180, by the way, so that's 180 intelligence that you will not have if you're dying a lot.
Your middle
That
tower is
180
under attack.
intelligence is enough to actually make you lose your stats. Granted, the intelligence is not being reflected over here. So I think this is just doing it without the stacks, which is really interesting, honestly speaking. Remove all bots. We'll just spawn in a kuku. And then we're gonna say kuku has 60 protections. Apply. If we pop this, he did not die. So you definitely do need Necronomicon stacks, or at least Doom Orb stacks at the absolute bare minimum, or partial Necronomicon in all of Doom Orb.
Your middle tower is
Potentially
under
one tap,
attack.
just as a confirmation there. So this build is really dependent on can you keep Necronomicon stacked or not. If you do not have the skills to keep Necronomicon stacked, I recommend swapping out Necronomicon for something like Polynomicon. This way, and the overall damage output will keep up. Boom. And then you can still play the game basically. But yeah, that is what I would recommend. Because if we reset cooldowns, add stacks, and we say, hey, spawn us in this thing, 60 protections.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Serpents.
As you can see, the amount of damage from a single rotation was breaking 9 or almost 10k. Granted, there was basic attacks going in between those, but when Polynomicon is tracking for almost 800, there you go. So, if you don't have the skills to keep Necronomicon stacked during a match, or if it's a match you're like, okay, the skill level of the enemy players are lower than what they could be, that is when I would recommend building Necronomicon. If you're newer to these builds and you're not confident with keeping Necronomicon stacked so your ult can just actually one-tap people for funny memes, then build Polynomicon.
Your middle tower is under
It
attack.
gives you regen and max mana as well, which is great. And just so it's stated, Kuku's passive is basically a second Book of Thoth. So I'm getting 88 additional intelligence here compared to the other gods. However, Scylla's passive gives her 80 intelligence base anyways. So there's the big difference between those. Otherwise, Janus gets a bonus ability damage if you've hit enemies with portals or something, or gone through them. Iset is going to be the hardest one, but she's also the one that will let you carry in a 1v3 plus much easier than the others, if you have the skills.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Anyways, this is getting longer than I was intending it to, but I will cut the video off there. For those of you who are curious about Vulcan, I mean, just if you can land Vulcan ults at max range, have fun with Vulcan. Like, your turrets are going to do funny damage too. But there we go.